share updates to multiple apps, right? More than 40 plus apps every week with the help of NX. Because as I shared, like I've been involved with NX for a longer period of time. I think it's been close to 6 years now. I think I started using NX in 2020 and never looked back. I just love the tool, and then it has been improving a lot. I think it has uh, NX started with a tool for only Angular and then monorepo tool, but now it's more than a monorepo tool. It's an entire build system, or it's a build tool now. So you can do whatever you want. And I'm going to talk about few features of NX which can be very helpful. And if you are not an Angular developer, just don't worry about it, because there are so many things which you can learn from this talk which can be applied to any framework. I mean, when I say any framework, I mean any framework, even something which you build on your own. So let's go ahead and start. To start with, like, why we are doing this, like why we are here, like why we are discussing about something, because without any problem statement, it's hard to generalize, or without any problem statement, it's hard to figure out like what tool you should be using. So let me give you an example, like without monorepo, like how the apps used to be built. So in past, the monorepo concept is not something new. I mean, the developers who have been writing Java or Angular, or sorry, .NET, they have been doing monorepo for a long time. So if you remember, like for example, .NET, all the projects used to be like a single project, and then you build all the dependencies, and then but the only problem was Java or .NET, right? They had very bad reputation, because people used to say, hey, it takes so much to actually build those projects, that sometime, I mean, in older days, now it's not the reality anymore, but I'm sure there are some Java developers who are still waiting for their build to be finished, because it's so freaking slow. So in older days, like, people used to really build at the night, and and that's how the concept of nightly build came in. I'm not sure like how many people are aware of this. We keep talking about nightly builds, but no one knows like from where this concept came in. This concept came in because in past the build system used to be so slow that people used to build at night. So when everyone is sleeping, so no one has to actually wait and see like what happens to build, and then next day people used to come in morning and see like if the build has succeeded or not, and to their shock, okay, let's do another build this night as well. So sometimes it used to fail. So in older days, like what we used to have is like multiple repositories, and then of course, like after .NET and Java, everything, right? Of course, people started doing a lot of front end where Node.js came, a lot of tooling came. So people started building their own projects in silos, and this is how the structure used to be. I'm not talking about 10 years ago or 15 years ago when I started writing code, and that's how I used to do it, like nightly builds and everything. But I think most of you might be aware of this concept, right? Where you have concept of what you can micro frontends. I think this is something which you might be aware of, micro frontend or module federation, where you have an app, like you have a navbar basically, and navbar does nothing. Navbar actually just loads all the apps which are independently deployed somewhere, and this can be using iframe or whatever technology you decide, right? But in past, like before the concept of micro frontend came in, module federation came in, uh, the concept of iframes were pretty popular to do this, where people used to actually create multiple apps. They are based in their different repositories, and they used to build those apps and then load it inside the network. But what was the problem here? Actually, this was not solving the biggest issue. You remember, like the biggest issue was the build, right? So we have to build the nightly builds. But now the thing is, like, now each app can be built in silos, and they need to have their own infra. So every app is actually built, deployed somewhere, and in previously, like before module federation or micro frontend came into picture, a lot of organizations were actually using this concept where they used to push the entire JavaScript on a database. this used to happen. And then this is finally available somewhere. This was, of course, maybe a minor setback. I would say, okay, people saw that, okay, there is something better now. I mean, rather than building something, everything, like all the apps, 200 apps together, and then people thought, okay, now I'm just building my own app. I don't have to care about 199 other apps. But sharing code became a problem. Over the years, whenever you have to have design system or you want to have some shared libraries shared across with some other teams, people started, of course, pushing them into a different repositories where everyone will contribute and then share it with every other. Now, the problem with this concept is uh, there are multiple apps, and there are some apps who have maybe capacity right now, concept of sprints. So they have capacity to maybe upgrade to design system V3 now. Someone has the capacity to do it after 3 months. Someone has after 6 months. So it means there are teams who are not on the latest, and then we have to manage multiple version of your design system, manage multiple version of your shared libs, and I'm sure like people who have been in the industry long enough know this thing. I'm sure everyone who has been writing code for past 5-10 years or who has been maintaining the legacy code already knows and going through this. So what happened? So of course this caused an issue, right? So in some cases there are like multiple apps loaded inside iframe, and then there are apps which looks different. So some app which has, let's say, dark theme, and then there is an app which doesn't have concept of dark theme. So users are saying maybe light theme in one page, and then other page has dark theme, or maybe other theme, or some UI which looks maybe very very much better than the other app which looks, oh, this is built in 90s. And this started causing a problem, right? I mean, because at the end, users will see this and will say, oh, wow, what is this? Like, this is not what I'm paying for. So let's see. What other issues were there? So with iframe, of course, you also had this issue where you have page reloads after each app redirect. I'm not sure, like I hear some noise. I don't know what kind of noise, but there's a noise in between. If you can.
It's when people join in.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can we mute that? This is the noise.
Okay, I'm good.
Okay, cool. So, so people started seeing this, like, of course, there is a page reload after every navigation, right? So when you click on maybe contact us, it reloads the page. When you go to home, it reloads the page. And of course, every app had huge bundle size, because there is no way to tree shake the code, because everything needs to be built together and needs to be available, so your front end works perfectly fine. So no concept of tree shaking, no concept of lazy loading, even upgrading to new version of anything. I mean, I'm just saying here Angular because we most of our Angular developers, but this also became an issue because all the apps are in different repositories. So someone might be saying, oh, I will go ahead and upgrade to Angular 21 this week. Someone is saying, hey, but I'm still on Angular 11. And someone is saying, oh, okay, I'm still doing Angular JS. So this also became a huge issue, right? Maintaining multiple versions of shared libraries became an issue, even design system, because you cannot just have dedicated people just to do this, because sometimes shared libs are just a mess, because everyone wants to maybe share one function and they just dump this code in your shared libraries, and then someone has to maintain this, which became a huge bottleneck, because the problem is who owns this, and the answer is no one because it's a mess created by everyone, so no one owns it, no one is responsible for it, but everyone has to do it. Then synchronizing the releases. Now, remember, in most cases, of course, this was perfectly fine, but if there is any compatibility issue, you have to synchronize on the release, and sometimes it takes months to release such kind of system. And it also became an issue because you also have to make sure your shared library is released, your design system is released, You have coordinated with 10 different people that, okay, you have to test, you have to be there just in case I'm pushing something. So it became a huge bottleneck in every other sense, right? So let's see what is NX and how it solves the issue. So NX, it's actually the best thing which NX gives you is build cache. You know, whenever you build something, NX can actually cache it and replay it from the cache. For example, let's say if you have 20 apps, now you have touched your app, which is a small part of those 20 apps. Do I need to build 19 apps? No. The answer is, of course, if you have built, if it's already built, it's built. I mean, I just have to build my own code. If I'm running a test, the same thing applies. If someone else, I'm not touching someone else's test, so I shouldn't be building it because it should come from the cache. That's the concept. So it's like it provides you the build cache. It's framework and technology agnostic. It's like you can choose whatever framework, whatever technology you want, as I said in before I started. It's plugin based, so you can actually build your own tool. So you don't have to rely on whatever is already built. You can extend it and build something on top of it. I will show you the plugin system how it works. NX already supports some of the major frameworks, for example, Angular, React, Vue, Next, out of the box. So they already have plugins created, and then you can just go ahead and use it. And it supports the most important thing, which or you can say the problem statement which we were talking about, micro front. So it's actually supports micro front end out of the box with zero configuration. And there is another flavor called micro front ends, module federation, right? And it also supports the backend technologies, for example, .NET, Spring. There are plugins for Python. There are plugins for Rust. There are plugins for everything. Like there are community built plugins available. So the organization where I used to work, code base was actually not 2 million lines of code. I think I forgot to update this, but in our case, right, where we actually implemented NX, our code base started with like less than 100k lines of code, and then it grew up to 5 million lines of code uh, till the last December. So December 2025, we started in August 2022 with less than 100k lines of code, and then we had like 5 million lines of code in 3 years. And then we had more than 400 projects, and there were like close to 50 apps, more than 40 plus teams contributing to that monorepo. This was a huge system. And then our monorepo consisted Angular, of course, we had NX, we had Next.js, not Next, sorry. There are so many different names. So Next.js has our backend for our front end, EFF. And then we had libraries, we had unit test suite, we had like end-to-end tests using Playwright. And then we used to actually follow run-based development. It means every PR gets merged to main, and then we deploy it on development, and then someone tests it. And we, of course, make sure that we have enough test coverage before you merge the code base or merge the code. So with module federation, our code base actually simplified a bit. So previously, what we had was different apps built by different teams, deployed, pushed somewhere, and then we are testing it. Or maybe at the end of the day, we are saying like if everything works or not, or maybe during release. With NX and module federation, what we can do is we can have a shell app. So everything is an app. Here I'm saying shell app is actually an app, which doesn't know anything about the other apps. But they are in a single repository. They are not multiple repositories. And then teams can start adding more apps as they go, right? So there are multiple apps available within the same repository. I'm not saying multiple repositories. And then every app or every project, I can say, can have different tasks. What are the tasks? So for example, you already do this even though you don't use monorepo, right? So for example, you run your test, you run your build, you run your linting, you run your unit test, you run your E2E test, and these are all called tasks. So these are tasks defined for each project. And how you can do this, how you can actually start using NX module federation with Angular, it's simple. So you have a command called NX generate, and then you can say, okay, I want to create a post application, which is shell, which doesn't know anything about like what other app exists. And there are remotes which are the remote apps which will be loaded once user navigates. So it can be home, about, blogs, and app 3, app 4, app 5 as you move. Like you can add more in future. It's not like it's limited. And as soon as you add more apps, it just gets loaded in shell. So what we have removed is now you don't have to rely on creating a new repository, the extra setup in between where you have to push the code to somewhere, like maybe on a database. I'm not talking about code, I'm talking about the build artifacts, right? And then write your custom code to make sure that gets loaded inside whatever the different repository is. Now it's everything at one place. And you don't have to do anything manually, no manual configuration, zero configuration required. And what else? So of course, like one thing which we wanted to do is we wanted to introduce feature flags as well. And this is where I'm going to talk a little bit about plugins. So, feature flags is actually very tricky, I would say, and but it becomes very essential, right? In case you are working for enterprise, and then in enterprises, like you also do some kind of POCs, right? So proof of concept, where you say, okay, this feature might be useful, but out of 10 uh, customers we have, 5 are saying, okay, this might be useful, 5 are saying, maybe if you show me actual demo, maybe I can see and see if this is useful, and 2 says, okay, I don't care about it, I don't have a use case for this, out of 20, sorry. So my math. And then you say, okay, let's go with feature flags. But how to introduce a feature flag? So people think like, okay, without feature flag, what can happen? So without feature flag, this can happen, right? So you deployed an app, you went home, now everything is breaking. And then your team is in the office working on weekend, fixing the issue and seeing, okay, what went wrong. But with shipping code without feature flag feels like, okay, oh, what we will do is we will merge, we'll keep our backend ready, we will keep our front end ready, and expectations everything goes well. But without feature flag, this is what happens. As soon as you merge everything, nothing is working, your whole app is crashing. So let's see how feature flag can solve this issue, right? So feature flag can actually allow you to ship feature based on your user. Maybe if you have multiple clusters for your maybe application, you can ship it by cluster, you can ship it by percent of users or customer, maybe make this feature available for 10% of the customers in this particular cluster. That's also possible. Or you can provide a specific build. So you can say, okay, for this particular customer, let's provide a different build which has some extra feature. And you can combine all of them. The advantage of using feature flag is you can isolate bugs now, because your 90% of the customers are happy because there is nothing which is breaking for them. 10% of the customer who wanted this new feature, you can actually tell them, oh, we were doing this POC because we wanted to ship a new feature, we will roll it back. And you don't have to roll anything back, right? You just have to roll back the feature flag. You can say, okay, I just disable the feature flag, no deployment required, and that's all good. So you can ship feature with more confidence. The question is like, what tool should we use for feature flag? So I'm not recommending any feature flag tool here because we built our own. So we built our own using the plugin system which Animal offers. So you can actually create a new plugin inside NX by using this command. So you can say NX add NX plugin, and then next command is where you want to keep those plugins. And you can say, okay, I'll just put them into infra folder. Now, also when you are building your own solution, in this case feature flag, right? You have to care about some of the developer experience thing, because if at the end, like, who is going to write that code? Of course, there will be a developer, right, who will be doing this. Or if you want to create a UI to give to the end user, I mean, that's all good, but you have to care about those. So for example, you have to have an ability to enable disable flag, you have to have a dashboard, you also need to have a weekly alert saying, okay, these many features are enabled, this many features are maybe 100% rolled out. So you can remove the flag, remove the code, because one thing which feature flagging system causes is like a lot of code duplication. I'm sure most of you who has been using feature flag system knows about this, right? So you have to copy paste a lot of code based on certain conditions. So once everything goes GA, you have to make sure that you delete that code. Otherwise, it will be always there. And now you have your bugs isolated. So there is a fire, but at only one place which you can easily deal with now. So you can say, okay, this is fine. I mean, I know where the fire is. I can just go ahead and make sure that it never happens again, and everything works fine. Like not everyone has to panic, right? So proof of concepts. This is one thing which we also needed at our organization, and so we wanted our developers to ship POCs faster. So because, like, of course, POCs have short span, where maybe your customers are satisfied and say it's all good, or they say, okay, I don't need this feature. So in case you need to add a new app to create a new POC, what you can do is you can say, okay, just run this command Angular remote, and then you can say, okay, this is the new app, LLM agent, for example, because everyone talking about agents, and you can just add a new app into existing code base without doing any configuration. But one thing which we keep asking, right, because we all work mostly in enterprises, I think. What about the customization? Because every setup, I would say, differs from each other. So what in case I want to customize my workspace? Of course, this is where you can also use something known as generators. So NX provides a generator and something known as executor. I will talk about that as well. So using generators, you can actually customize your workspace. For example, in this case, I'm saying, okay, rather than actually creating a new project, what I want is whenever a new project is created, I want the project to be created, and then I want component test to be added to this project by default. My developers don't need to do this multiple steps, and they don't need to worry about the configuration required to make them work. So what we can do is we can create a new NX generator. And when I talk about NX generator, it's just a command. For example, I'm sure many of you already know ng generate, right? So you can say ng generate, and for example, right now you might have seen app, you might have seen component, ng-c, ng service. You can create something new, NX generate, and say, okay, my app, or whatever name you want to create, or whatever name you want to give, basically. And then that command
Sorry, you said Yeah,
Can you hear
now,
me now?
yeah, now. So,
Oh, I don't know. Like someone might have indicated or okay, cool. So yeah, so I was talking about the generators, right? So now, in case let's say your team decides, okay, we have a different setup. I mean, we need Angular project and component test to be generated together. You can actually wrap them inside this generator and say, okay, these are two steps performed together. So this can be your maybe unit test setup, right, or end-to-end setup. And then whenever you create a new project, you have all the different configuration done for your project using the generators. You can also generate files because maybe in your case you need what you need is an extra file to be generated or written to the disk. And NX provides a generate files function. So you can say, okay, generate file at this place with this name, and this is all configuration. You can also pass parameters dynamically to that file. So it uses this EJS format. I'm not sure like how many of you are aware of this EJS syntax, but what you see on the screen right now is EJS syntax. So this name is actually dynamically written when you are writing the disk or writing the file on the disk. So this is all possible using NX, and you can modify your setup. But how about maintaining the large code base, right? Because whenever you think about enterprise applications, they're not small. I mean, they're not small. 100K lines of code, they're going to be big. And let's see like how we can maintain the large code base and what are the tasks which you need to do to maintain the large code bases, right? So of course, one of the important part of maintaining an old code base or any code base which is actively maintained is refactoring. So you have to go ahead and refactor your code because technology keeps improving. We started with somewhere Angular 4, which had limited feature. Now Angular 21, we have better syntax, control flow syntax, and everything which is coming. And then your code, you have to adopt those, right? You have to adopt those changes. It means refactoring your code. You have to deprecate because there will be a lot of code which will become maybe absolute, and you have to make sure that you are deprecating your code. In this case, the deprecation can be different: shared functionality, shared libraries, maybe something from your design system, some component from your design system. So you have to make sure that they are deprecated. And then migrating your code, like we already spoke about an example, which is control flow syntax. And then you might need to add linters, which is again a difficult choice, I would say, because the linters and toolings, for example, end-to-end test, they keep improving. Maybe a few years ago, we were talking about maybe we will use TypeScript ESLint, then ESLint and ESLint merged at some point of time. We started using ESLint. Now people are moving and then adopting Biome or Oxlint, and there will be different new tools which will come. Same for end-to-end test. A few years ago, Cypress was everywhere. Now we have Playwright everywhere. And in future, maybe Vitess takes over and creates a new framework, and now everyone is moving to that. So this is also an important thing which you should consider when working on an X. That okay, if you're investing in tooling, I mean, keep this in mind. Like, why should I do that? You have to also help team members. You have to also improve documentation. There are so many things which you have to do when you are working on a large code base, especially in case you are maintaining it. And you have to also think about ability to upgrade the framework. What in case a new version of Angular is available? Of course, which happens every 6 months. I mean, if you are on Angular 17 and you have to migrate, and now you're saying, oh, I'm more like world has moved on, and we already have Angular 22 now, and I'm still stuck in 17 because my other repository is Angular 11, and I cannot like they're not compatible anymore. So those are different things which you have to think about when you are adopting NX in your organization. So let me show you one important thing, or maybe most important feature, which is somehow free on NX. It's called NX Graph. So in NX you can also create a graph by running this command. So in case you are inside a monorepo or NX monorepo, you can just run NX graph, and it will give you the nice graph like how your different applications are dependent together, which app uses which library. This is very useful when you go ahead and refactor your code. So you can say, okay, for example, in this case, UI library here is actually just being used by home and not by others. Maybe you can see, okay, if I really want to have UI just being used by home, or maybe there are some duplicate code available in blogs and about which can be moved to UI, and then everyone just shares the same code base. Because if there are different teams, this might happen, right? Because in our case we had like 40 plus teams contributing, and there are chances that someone is duplicating that code. And then you, by referring to this next graph, you can see like who is using what, and then you can just maybe share the code across. You can also now this is the new feature which is released I think last year, so not very new, but one important thing which we're talking about is, of course, we are also talking about migrating old code from a different repositories to NX. And this used to be a lot of work, because this used to be manual. And now with NX import command, what you can do is you can actually import another repository. Maybe let's say someone who is on Angular 11 maybe, and you tell them, hey, let's move your code base to our NX monorepo, and then we can also migrate your code base to the latest version, which maybe you are maybe let's say on Angular 21. So what you can do is you can just run this command and then move that code base to your NX monorepo, run the migration, and then you are done. And this is a single command, NX import, and then you can provide the source repository from where you want to migrate, and from where you want to migrate to where. For example, in your NX app or NX monorepo, you have a folder where you want to actually keep this project, so they can still keep contributing in isolation, right? So they don't have to refer to your code base. But the advantage is now you will be able to share code base together. So this is NX import command. Go ahead and use it in case you are planning migration in your organization. What else you can do to help your developers, right? In case you want to actually scale up your NX monorepo, you can also have documentation. So for example, if you have a shared activities, if you have a design system, you can actually just deploy them somewhere on a central place. You can also use GitHub pages. I think that's more than enough. We used to use Backstage, and that was very good, but we moved on. Use Slack for better communication. So if you are doing some migration, maybe you can announce this to your developers saying, okay, we are doing this migration maybe this week, or maybe next week, or maybe next month, whatever you have planned. Because when you are in monorepo, you are going to affect a lot of code bases. Like there are maybe in our case like 300, 400 projects, right? So I'm going to affect 400 projects in case I do some migration. And keep a dedicated channel for developers, because not everyone needs to know everything. So uh, just keep a close channel for developers. And then you have to also, like, if you are the one who's responsible for all the NX thing or monorepo thing, you have to also organize workshops. Otherwise, it will not scale up. Because when you are in a monorepo, you have to take everyone together and move ahead. It's not like you can just do everything in isolation and everything works. It's something not you cannot. You don't want to do that in case you're using this. Introducing tooling. So as I said, like when you work in isolation, people would choose whatever tool they would like to, but introducing tooling is a challenge as well. Because first thing is, of course, you have to take everyone on board, saying, okay, this is what we will be using. And this is where NX actually makes it a little bit easier. So what you can do is, the first thing is, of course, in case you want to introduce a new tool in your code base, it's time consuming. I'm sure like the people who might have configured, they write inside their Angular code base, or maybe when the components, Cypress component testing actually came in, and you have to configure it with your own hand. That was time consuming, right? And sometimes adding tool is not a problem, it's easy. So you can easily add a new tool because someone actually created some code mod. But maintaining it becomes a problem, because tools also become complicated. Some library which was very popular a few years ago, and now it's maybe tech debt, because no one is using it, no one is maintaining it, and world has moved on and now everyone is on new technology. And in that case, that tooling becomes expensive because you have to maintain it. You cannot do anything with that. So this is where NX also helps. So NX can actually make your life easier by actually while introducing and making a new tool. Because let's say if you want to add a new E2E framework, so NX also checks the industry like what's going on, which tool is available, which is better. So for example, when Cypress came in, NX added support for Cypress out of the box. Then Playwright came, Playwright became popular, and it's also added the support for Playwright. VTest came, people started using VTest, and it's also added the support for VTest. So all these things make your life easier. For example, just the VTest, right? And this all things are actually with zero configuration. So you don't have to do anything. NX does all the heavy lifting. And it becomes easy to actually go ahead and convince your team to move to this tool because in case you want to migrate to the next version, NX can do that for you, as we discussed. That migration is also a difficult task in case it's not provided out of the box. But here, NX is providing it out of the box, so you just go ahead and use those tooling and you can just move forward. But how to make it, like how to keep it updated? So there is a single command. So NX provides a command called NX migrate, and then everything is updated. So you can say NX migrate latest, and then everything is migrated to the latest version. NX, as I said, it provides the migration for everything which is provided by default. For example, let's say Cypress, Playwright, Angular, React, Vue, whatever framework you're using, you just run this command, and anything which is recently launched by those frameworks can be upgraded to the latest version. If you are using Angular, let's say if you are on Angular 17 and you run this today, it will try to migrate to Angular 22. But you can also migrate, as Angular says. Angular suggests that you should always do incremental migration. Say first Angular 17 to 18, then 18 to 19. You can also do that using NX migrate command. So you can also mention that okay, I want to migrate NX, but I want to migrate only Angular from let's say 17 to 18, and then you can also do this incremental migration, keep them into different branches, and then keep merging it, and then iterate, and finally you are on Angular 22. If you think your code base has no issues and it's not like maybe very big enough for now, you can just run NX migrate a test and then migrate from 17 to 22. Don't try that, but just saying like if this is your demo project, or maybe you just want to give it a try, like if things work or not, maybe you can just also run NX migrate latest. But everything will be on latest and your life will become easier. So CI/CD, because I think we still have some time here. CI/CD is also a big problem, right? As your project grows, because I was giving an example of my three builds where project used to become so big that building them became a bottleneck. Now, think about 5 million lines of code where like 100 to 200 PRs being raised daily, and you have to actually keep them like build everything, right? So you have to run all the tasks. For example, you have to build, you have to run test, you have to run linting, you have to run your E2E test, and this causes a bottleneck because whenever someone is raising a PR, something will be built, what will be built, and it causes a lot of friction within the team. That okay, my code is stuck because I'm not able to move ahead because CI/CD takes time. And this is not new, right? I mean, we all have been at this place where we are complaining, oh, dude, I just need the faster build, give me the faster build because I need to merge my code, I need faster test, so I can go ahead and merge our code. I mean, I think that one thing which we all developers love to do is complain, right? And we have to complain to somebody. So in this case, we just go to our DevOps person and say, okay, make it fast. Like, why you're not making it fast? And this is where actually GitHub Action combined with NX actually can become a superpower. Let me show you how. So these are a few things which you can try out on your own setup in case you have. So you can also use large runners on GitHub Actions, which is like higher end machines. So you can maybe run your jobs in parallel. You can also use merge queue. This is the enterprise feature, by the way. So when I'm talking about merge queue, this is not something which is available with any feature, any subscription. This is enterprise feature, and you can also move your, let's say, end-to-end test takes time. I'm sure like most of you are aware that end-to-end tests are written with a real backend, right? There is a real backend which is available. What you can
Santosh,
do is,
I think
yeah,
yeah, I think the NX Cloud has great integration with GitHub Actions, right?
yeah, yeah, I'm
It
coming to
has,
that one.
uh,
Yeah. So you can also do like a merge queue in case you want to offload some of your end-to-end tests and you don't want to run it every time. Because what merge queue does is, I will show you what merge queue does, because that's very nice feature. And then you can also cache the builds for faster build and test. And you can also add code rabbit for code review, so it's all automated and you don't have to invest much time, because waiting for code review is also a time waste, because no one is doing anything at the time. So you can also add code rabbit. As soon as there's a PR, it reviews your code, it gives you feedback, and then you can iterate and move on. So I'll talk about merge queue a little bit, because this is a very nice feature, and especially in case of enterprises where there are multiple PRs being raised. So when you're using any test, of course, best way to find the bugs, because you are simulating the end user's behavior, but it's like very expensive. As I said, when you run your end-to-end test, it's actually running against a real database, and it takes time. So it means you may need to have your dedicated server just to run the end-to-end test. And if you are running it 200 times, just think about time as well as money which you might have invested in doing that. The other problem is, of course, you can run this, but as soon as someone else raises a PR, your previous PR is also already stale, because our previous run or end-to-end test run is already stale, because now you have a new code, and it's possible that someone might have changed the same code base, or someone might have changed the same area which was affected in the previous PR. Now what we need to do is, someone needs to go ahead and keep updating their branch. It means the end-to-end test which was supposed to run once is now running 200 times without getting merged. Right. So let's see how merge queue solves this issue. For example, let's say you have 4 PRs. They're added to pipeline, they're pushed, and they are now added into CIs. So what happens in case, let's say, PR4 fails? It's just removed, like it's not even considered. PR1 to 3 is actually promoted. Let's say everything went well, your code review was done, your uh, like end-to-end, not end-to-end test, but your unit test succeeded, your build succeeded, your linking succeeded, everything was good. As a developer, what you do is you say, okay, add this to queue, add this to merge queue. Now PR1 to 3 gets promoted to merge queue, where in merge queue, what will happen is it creates a new virtual branch. So now whatever branches we will be talking about it's a virtual branch. So a new branch will be created with PR1 as a base, and the main is actually merged into the base. So you say base branch, sorry, PR1, and then base branch is main, which will be merged into PR1. Then PR1 and PR2, so there is another virtual branch which will be created, and now base is actually the PR1, because PR1 already has code from me. Similarly, for PR3, PR1, PR2, PR3, and new virtual branch will be created, and then the base branch will become PR1, PR2. This is a little bit confusing, but just try to stay for some time, and then it will become clear. Now the advantage is every branch has the latest code from me. So in case you are running your end-to-end test now, it's actually running with the latest code which is available in main, including all the code from all the PRs which are available to be merged. So the merge queue size you can define. It can be 5, it can be 10, it can be as like just try to keep it like between 5 to 10, because that's ideal. Otherwise, it may cause an issue, because it will take more time to merge all the code together. So what will happen in this case is PR1, 2, 3 will be merged together and pushed to main. So it's like you are creating a group of PRs where you will run your end-to-end test. And as I said, like based on the queue size you define, maybe 5, maybe 10. In this case, I'm saying just 3, but maybe can be 10 as well. So 10 PRs will run together. All the end-to-end tests will run against the latest code and plus this 10 PRs, and no conflict. All the 10 PRs is pushed, and the next batch will be taken again, and then all the other 10 PRs will be taken into queue. Again, the same process happens. Everything, all the code is always latest. There is no stale branch which will be available to be merged in case you are using merge queue. This was one of the biggest issue for many years, and merge queue solves this issue. There are some products as well. Merge queue from GitHub is not only the solution. There are multiple solutions available in the market. There is one, maybe I'm not sure how many of you heard about it, but it's called Mergify, which is also available for GitHub and GitLab, I think. And then everything works cool, and then you merge your code. But what about updating everything? Because your code base can be very big. This is where you can also actually also run affected build or affected tasks on the CI. So NX has something known as NX affected. For example, in this case, here, let's say you make changes to about. Do I need to build blogs and home? The answer is no. Why should I build them? Because I haven't touched it. So you can run NX affected in this way, like how it works basically. So let's say this is your code base, you have multiple apps, you have some shared libraries, you go ahead and make update to lib1, and now your app1 and app3 should be updated or maybe rebuilt again. You push your changes. You can actually use NX affected command, and you can define what targets or what tasks you want to run whenever there is a push to the code, or maybe there is a PR which is created. And you can say, okay, I want to run NX affected targets is build lint test, so I want to run lint build and test whenever there is a new PR which is created. And NX affected will make sure that, okay, in this case only app1 and app3 is built, because NX graph, again, I said, like this is one of the amazing feature of NX, that it can identify what is affected. And now by adding the caching, you can also, do it on the CI. This works out of the box on your local library. You don't have to do any extra configuration to get this feature. Locally, it works absolutely fine. But in case if you want to do it on CI, you can actually have, maybe you can also use S3 bucket. Or, as Aziz was mentioning, there is a paid feature. There is a paid, a paid product by NX, which is known as NX Cloud. If you don't want to do this manually, just go ahead and use NX Cloud. NX Cloud does everything out of the box, so it can actually run NX affected, and it can also give you dedicated servers. So there is something called NX agents, which is available now. So NX can run your entire workload on their server. There are two ways to run it, just remember. One, where you just do the caching, and one where you do, or where you give the entire workload to NX, which is NX agents. NX Cloud, like if you see NX Cloud, there are multiple things available inside NX Cloud. So if you don't want to pay for NX Cloud, of course S3 bucket is one way to use it, which is not very reliable in my experience, because there are cases where it takes more time to actually push the cache, retrieve the cache, because at the end someone has to retrieve the cache. And then it depends, all depends on what kind of servers you have, how big servers you have. You can of course, like to make fast builds, what you can do is get more money, basically have more expensive servers, and that can also solve this issue. But like the question is how long? I mean, it's not possible that you just keep giving the money and keep increasing the server size. So this is an example like how it works locally. For example, I built a library, okay, and now I just run it again, and you see there is a thing which says, okay, successfully run target within 5 milliseconds, because everything was cached, and it says, and it's written the output from cache instead of running command for 1 out of 1 task, because this was just a demo. But still, from whatever, more than few milliseconds, which it took for the first run 47 seconds, actually, not even milliseconds. From 47 seconds to 5 milliseconds, this is what NX caching can do. So you don't have to build everything again, and it also becomes faster too. I'll skip this release strategy. I think this is not something which maybe is important to everyone, but I'll just skip this and maybe we can take questions if there are any.
Yeah, if anyone has a question, please. By the way,
Or if you don't have,
yeah,
yeah.
I like the live series you did on your YouTube channel. Yeah, I started learning NX from it. It's really amazing. It's old.
Thank you.
It has 2 years ago. I don't know, but
Yeah.
it's really awesome.
I'm planning to actually start again, like with the latest version of NX and Angular by maybe next week.
Yeah, please do it.
So yeah, so because yeah, NX is pretty powerful and not many people
Yeah.
are aware of it. So I'll just do it again. And now, like I think when I was doing that live stream, it was Angular 16. Now we have Angular 21.
If anyone has a question, you can. So,
And if you don't have any questions right now and you try to
Yeah.
try to NX later, just reach out to me on Santosh and my contact details are actually available on this website. You can go to santosh.dev and I have my contact info available here. Whatever way you prefer, wherever you are, maybe LinkedIn, Twitter, Postcard. So send me a message and we can talk about it.
What? So, it's a huge thanks to our amazing speaker here.
What is this? Okay, I think Nikhil had some questions. I don't know how we can allow.
It's in messages.
Hey, Nikhil. Yeah.
I don't know what's the question says. Would like to participate.
It's a big question or not, but still, can you hear me? Can you guys?
Yes, sir. Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. I mean, he's actually talking to you. That's why I just asked it. Sorry. No. Just I'm gonna. It's a big question or not, but still, currently it's like some architectural decision where we can use NX in our case. Just checking out whether that's the case or not. So the problem is like we have a big monorepo and we do have a micro frontend. It's like we used module federation for that, and but now we are actually moving away from that one. So, but the thing is like it's a separate repo. We call it as a micro and mono repo for now. The micro repo has its own backend and its own frontend. Okay, but we need to integrate that particular application into our mono repo. The case is like that tab or URL can be accessed from the main mono repo, but just we are now confused about how we can integrate that into like in the main monorepo. Can we consider using NX? Does it make any sense, or should we go with the module federation or native module federation itself?
I think I would recommend moving to NX because this exactly the same use case we had in our case. So we also had like all those 40 apps which I was talking about in this case, right? There were actually 40 different repositories.
Yeah.
And we had like the shell app, which is in your case is another app. We also had the same. So we used to actually keep this separate and then use the URL to actually load it inside the app at runtime using Webpack. So we had like all this big Webpack configuration written, which no one knows like what it is doing, and no one even dared to touch it because if something goes wrong, who will fix it?
Correct.
So I mean, the biggest advantage you get out of NX is the ability to contribute So for more developers to contribute to that code base. So they won't be scared because if you show more configuration, people will be scared always. Oh, what is this configuration? I don't want to deal with it. But if you tell them, okay, just create an app and then you are ready, people will do that.
Yeah. Just in addition to that, if that is the case, like the monorepo is a separate repo and the other micro frontend is a separate repository in the GitHub. So in that case, that micro frontend should be moved into that main monorepo in the NX repository level. I'm just asking, not in the code base. I mean, of course, that could be in the code base level as well, but in a different project, or like a project one, project two, or project one can be the main or the monorepo, and the project two can be again this micro frontend, but that comes under the single tree or can be separated as a two different repositories because two teams are managing with that. So how that works?
I think